for us to meet.
Okay,
Okay.
Standby na po.
go.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, action.
Yeah. Good afternoon, and we're really grateful that you have agreed to come and join the conversation on a very sensitive, I would say, very important piece of legislation that is now pending with Congress. I think it's with the Office of the President. Now, but before we start, I would like to confirm my knowledge of your affiliations. Yeah, of course, we have Attorney Pete Aguilar, who I always say is a legal eagle in the maritime industry. He is the executive director of the Philippine Inter-Island Shipping. Yeah, and of course, we have Mr. Erickson Marquez, who is now the president of the Filipino Association for Mariners Employment. He carries with him more than 50 years of exposure, involvement in international and domestic shipping, manning, and ship management. He's actually, I think, already considered an icon in the maritime industry. Of course, we have a seasoned seafarer, Captain Ronald Enrile, who is the Senior Executive President of the Philippine Transmarine Carriers, Inc., a very prominent manning company. And he has about how many years on board? Maybe about 20, 15, 10. Yeah, but he is a seasoned seafarer. Now we have Our Lady discussant, Mrs. Arlene Romero. He worked with the Maritime Industry Authority for more than 30 years. So he has a very good understanding of what maritime governance is. So he was director for several offices in Marina. First with the Manpower Development Office, and then domestic shipping also, and enforcement office, which is very important for a maritime administration. And last but not the least, and also the youngest, we have Mr. Sar Cloma Manglikmot. Don't forget the Cloma. He's president of the Philippine Association of Maritime Institutions. And he is one of those leaders of PAMI that is advocating for better educational institutions that will produce competent and world-class seafarers. Now, our topic is actually as I said, possibly a landmark law when it is a bill. So I hope that we will try to get the perspective of the various sectors in the maritime industry, like, for example, domestic shipping, international shipping and crewing, and of course, maritime education. The focus of our conversation should be on the implementability, the feasibility, the practicality of implementing the provisions of the bill as we find it now. And after that, probably, we will be looking at how the various sectors interconnect with respect to this bill. But I have the understanding before we started the conversation that everybody among the 5 discussants agree, excuse me, that we should have a Magna Carta of Filipino seafarers. Okay, but we would like to scrutinize if this particular version as we have now, as approved by the bicameral committee of Congress, would be implementable, would be feasible, and would be understandable by all concerned, especially the implementers, which are the maritime agencies and the stakeholders. So can we first look into the impact of this bill on the domestic sector, domestic shipping sector. And I think we have Attorney Pete here, who's from the domestic shipping industry. Start the conversation on this.
Salang kagad ako. Anyway, yeah. First of all, I would like to thank Tommy for inviting us to share my personal take as well as the possible opinion of our members. Incidentally, the Philippine International Shipping Association is comprised of several affiliated associations like the tanker sector, which is represented by 𝘍𝘪 or the Philippine Petroleum Sea Transport Association. And then we have the Philippine Liner Shipping Association and the Light Trades Association of the Philippines. Well, I guess our members would share with me, would share my personal opinion that the budget of this bill is timely and it is a necessary legislation. It seeks to promote or to implement the Maritime Legal Convention of 2006, which seeks to provide decent, just and human working conditions for our sector. It's timely because considering that our seafarers contributes more than $6 billion in foreign remittance. So it's about time government should take a look at their rights for a decent and human working conditions. We support I myself as well as our members. I think we support the passage of the bill that would institutionalize the rights provided to seafarers under the MLC 2006 convention. But however, ito na yung but. There are certain provisions in the latest version of the bill that we are not agreeable to. I'm referring to, I think, Section 75 or section. In the House version, it's Section 75, where it mandates domestic shipping companies to take in cadets to enter into agreements with maritime schools to take in cadets for their shipboard or onboard training. We are against it because it makes it mandatory. Presently, under existing situation, there are lots of domestic shipping companies that take in cadets on a voluntary basis, either for reason of as part of their corporate social responsibility or for their own interest by ensuring that there is a pool of competent officers that they can avail of in case they need these officers. However, the present setup is voluntary. Because why? Because shipping as it stands, our mandate is to transport cargo and passengers. We're not really on maritime education. If we are taking cadets, it's because as I said, part of our corporate social responsibility and our desire to have a pool of competent officers. What is objectionable to the present version of the Magna Carta bill is precisely that, requiring mandatory for domestic shipping companies to take in cadets. In fact, in the House version, the House version provided for a minimum number of cadets that a shipping company would take it for onboard training. However, in the latest BICAM, I think,
There's
as
nothing is
stated
mentioned.
by Captain Ridley, it was removed. The
Percentages.
Anyway, reckoning from that point alone, there are two reasons why we object. Okay, one is the fact that under the MLC 2006, it provides for a mandatory accommodation to be provided to all those who are working on board the ship. While cadets are just there on training, technically as during our audience with ILO, they say that since cadets are working as part of the training, they may be considered seafarers. So, yun ang kon. By that, kaya mag-provide kami ng accommodation. And good that the 6%, that the 60, six cadets with 30%
30%.
for passengers, 20% for cargo was removed from the BICAM version. But kung na-retain yun, we have members that are operating passenger ships. I'm referring to go. Na merong the crew complement is 20, so
Times.
times 30%, again, that's 6 cadets. Just multiply the cost of their meals, assuming na conservatively 150 per meal times 3, 450 times 6 times
30.
365. So that will be the cost for the boarding and lodging alone. And then there's this additional requirement of training officer, that each ship, mind you, all ang sinasabi ng bill is all domestic ship. So every domestic ship that is qualified under IMO regulation, correct me if I'm wrong, Captain Ridley, 500 GP.
Yes,
500 gross.
Yes.
And
750
kilowatts for engine. Okay, so for 6 cadets lang, that would be 200,000, something like that. And then from there, meron pa requirement ng training officer. So it's should
Yes, sir.
provide the training officer. So that's an additional crew complement. Na in fact, right now, we're asking Marina to reduce the
Crew
minimum
complement.
economic
Save money.
So, yan yung mga consideration apart from the fact that you have to increase the SOLAS and the
Lifeboat, life-saving.
life-saving equipment as mandated or required by the SOLAS convention. So, i-compute mo na yung additional accommodation, training officer, boarding and lodging, additional SOLAS life-saving equipment. So just imagine the cost. The impact to domestic shipping is that some shipping companies may absorb it. Okay. Yung mga malaki pwede siguro i-absorb, but I doubt it. For those who would not be able to absorb the cost, pass on yan. And ultimately, ang magsasuffer,
Passengers.
Riding public.
cargo owners and driving
Passengers.
public.
Riding public.
Okay.
But Attorney Pitt, have you looked into that provision of the MLC which says that for domestic shipping, for those engaged in domestic shipping, they can the government, the member state can look into complying with it according to the specific situation that is or obtaining in the country, for as long as it substantially comply with the requirements of the MLC. I'm just talking about only the part on what working conditions. Okay, so have you looked at that and probably negotiated with government?
Yes, in fact, personally, I have proposed this before. Na, okay, pwede yung gawin compulsory yan. What address two issues? One is the waiver, possible waiver of the accommodation requirement
Yes,
under
yes.
the 50,000.
Yes.
And second, it should be government that should shoulder the cost of training cadets. Because after all, yung mga seafarers natin, nagko-contribute ng bilyones. Why not the government provide certain incentives for their development, di ba? And yet, wala eh. I think the problem is most of our legislators do not know the industry. And I remember, Captain Rile, I remember that during our audience with the authors of the bill in Congress, in the House of Representatives, we're there in the forum, and we already called the attention about this. And then, pagdating ng Maritime version, andun pa rin eh. Although tinanggal na yung minimum na 30% for passenger and 20% for cargo. Alisin lang yung compulsory nature. I think it's doable kasi personally I don't agree with the provision that maritime schools should put their own training ship. It's very costly. In fact, I have already mentioned this a while ago, during the time of Yusek Hudan, there was a proposal by the South Korean government to donate training ships. But you know how much it will cost to maintain a ship?
100 million.
And to operate. And to operate.
So it's impractical really. Now, here is the domestic shipping. Maraming 550 and 750 kilowatt ships yan pwedeng ipon talaga gawing training ground ng ating mga cadets. But the two things that I've mentioned a while ago, which is waiver of the accommodation rule of the Maritime Labor Convention, and the cost should be addressed. In which case, wala tayong problema because ang daming sa mga members na lang namin, incidentally, PISA is the umbrella organization of the bigger shipping operators. Togo, Solid Shipping, Accessor Shipping. Marami yung i-address lang yun. Presently, some of our members are taking in cadets on a voluntary basis and even provide for certain allowance to the cadets. Kaya lang, hindi lahat ng members namin kaya yan. Hindi lahat ng members namin kaya yan.
Mag-usap po kayo.
No, I'd like to just comment on what Attorney Pete said. No, the Magna Carta for seafarers is an implementing law.
Yes.
Of the Maritime Labor Convention, because we are, say, signatory to the Maritime Labor Convention.
Right.
It is mandated by our rules, that our law, that these conventions must be approved by the Senate and provided an implementing law. So this is supposed to be the implementing vehicle for the Philippines to implement MLC. Now, MLC, we fully realize that our domestic shipping will not be able to comply with all the provisions of MLC. It is a fact that most of our domestic vessels are second-hand vessels that were purchased from ship-owning countries. So we know that during the time that these vessels were built, the MLC was not in effect. So most of these vessels will not really comply with, for instance, the cabin
Probably, yeah.
requirements, no? Or giving individual cabins to the crew as part of their welfare benefits, no? But the reason why I believe that the Congress had used or included a provision that will allow or require domestic vessels to have cadets is because first, our maritime educational institutions, they produce 26,000 students roughly every year, completing the 3-year academic requirements. But the 3-year academic requirements is not enough for them to get a degree. They still have to get to board the vessel as cadets as part of their 4th-year requirements before they're allowed to graduate. Now, presently, the industry can only absorb about 5,000 of these 26,000. So you can imagine that there are 21,000 students who have spent money, time, and effort selling probably their carabaos, or who graduate and are not given the opportunity to graduate with that 1-year requirement for cadetship. So probably our legislators saw it fit that to support the maritime education sector, that they require domestic vessels to have cadets. However, it is not compulsory. It cannot be compulsory for all the vessels registered with Marina, because there is a requirement, as mentioned by Attorney Pete, that the vessels must be at least 500 metric tons gross, and the engine must have 7,500
Kilo.
750.
750.
Seven.
Okay.
Kilo.
We have time and again requested Marina to provide the industry with a list of vessels that will comply or that will be within these requirements of the maritime education. So far, wala pa rin po yung, it has not been completed by Marina. So if only 40% or 30% of your vessels can comply with that, only that 30% can be required. And in addition, since these vessels do not have the cabins and may not have the number of safety equipments on board, Marina will also not allow more than the more cadets that will violate or will not be within the requirements for safety, no? So that's the reason why, in our understanding, the first version was not signed by the president because of the provisions that requires the domestic sector to be compliant also with MLC. But we understand that that has been removed already from the BICAM version, except that the requirement for mandatory cadets remained, but with no longer with numbers, no, with percentages. I think that is because they now realize that not all the vessels can accommodate cadets.
But in the discussions and in the draft law, in the draft bill, we can see that the focus is really like conditions of work, seafarers' rights, and to a large extent, maritime education. But don't you think there is something missing in the sense that what is these things that we are talking about vis-a-vis the larger picture of being able to connect the islands of the country and connect the Philippines to the world in terms of shipping operations? I think that's the bigger issue that maybe the policy makers failed to input in the discussion. What is the impact of having this Magna Carta to the main sea transport system of the country? Attorney Pitt, was that ever discussed in any discussions? Because
No.
seafaring is just part.
Mm.
I mean, you don't have seafarers if you don't have ships.
Mm.
So it's something that I think has been missed in the equation, in all the drafting, the different versions that we have. But maybe you have,
I think Attorney Brenda, with what Attorney Pitt mentioned earlier on the part of the bill, the sections that require them, that they are mandated to have an agreement with the Maritime Higher Education. I think there should be an additional section on that, that if ever they would train cadets on board their ship, that they should be given a tax credit for the expenses that they will be incurring. Otherwise, no ship owner would agree to put cadets on board if that will be an additional cost for them. The government should help the maritime industry.
yes,
Seafarers are contributing $6 to $7 billion a year, and why not at least give opportunities for the aspiring seafarers? Of course, international vessels cannot accommodate all the students who are completing their 3-year academic requirement, but we have domestic ships that are
Available.
that are available to train the cadets. But the government should help the domestic ship owners in terms of tax credit.
And I think
If ever that would be given to them, I don't think the domestic ship owners would object on having cadets on board their ships.
definitely, Captain Noriega. Kasi, it's quite ironic na oftentimes the party that you would hear complaining about high cost of domestic shipping is government. And yet, there is one of the contributors for that high domestic shipping cost is government itself. By imposing regulations that would entail financial burden on the industry. Marami dyan. I won't mention, ayoko makasagasa ng agency. But just give you a typical example. During the COVID-19, COVID pandemic, nirestrict kami to carry only during the talaga, yung kasagsagan ng COVID. We were restricted to only carry cargo. And then nung second year na, there was a government or DOTR directive mandating all domestic ships to allocate 20% of their cargo allocation and extend to agricultural products and extend 20% discount on freight for agricultural products. Tiyan mo, lugi na nga kami doon nung panahon ng COVID. Everybody, almost all shipping companies incurred in losses during that time. And then magbibigay pa kami ng 20% discount. So, all those things add to the sad plight of the domestic shipping.
but the tax credit that was mentioned by Captain Ronald, if you will consider that, should it be incorporated in this bill?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So,
And then you will have a different dimension with
of
the
course.
Department of
I'm sure of
Finance
that.
coming in.
I'm sure of that.
Yes.
It would be unreasonable for domestic shipping companies to
Correct.
still oppose it. The only problem is that I don't think it will pass.
On your personal
knowing-
opinion.
Knowing my
Don't be too negative.
participation for more than 20 years sa
Yeah,
We can try.
mga
There's no harm in trying.
Yes.
Attorney Brenda and I have been participating in the discussions in the House of Representatives in the Senate. I started in 1990.
no matter, every time na may proposal about
Reduction of.
that will reduce the revenue of government, automatic yan, no more thinking sa Department of
Yeah.
Finance. Object.
I remember, in one of the congressional hearings during the 90s, I told the committee, remove all taxes on shipping so that you will attract many of those foreign flagship owned by foreign
Yeah.
shipper to come to the Philippines. And you can just count how many revenues in terms of ship tonnage and all this, and all your Filipino seafarers will now be on board Philippine flagships. You do not export them. You hire them on board your Philippine flag. But of course, DOF was the one who raised it.
Automatic
So,
yan.
but I look at all these four top flagships of flag countries in the world. They do not impose taxes.
Yes, it's
Mr.
just tonnage use
Yeah.
Yes.
instead of tax.
It's a fixed tax per annually.
Yes.
Unlike us, the
Al-
tax system
although-
is different.
Insofar as that issue is concerned, medyo divided ang mga members namin. Kasi, like for instance, during the COVID, puro losing. If tonnage tax yan, bayad para kami ng tonnage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
Whereas, walang nagbayad nun because
No,
losing.
but if we're looking at international vessels registering their vessels in the Philippines, now we only have 100,
less than 100.
less than 100 Philippine flag vessels on
Correct.
international trade. But if you look at the taxes, if we can do a tonnage tax which is similar to the other flag states, we can attract more vessels.
Yes. You don't
We can
lose
attract the
anything.
owners. We will gain more.
Yes.
Plus the opportunity of the Filipinos to work on board, to secure their employment because it's a Philippine flag. That should be what the government is thinking.
yeah. But that is a different matter altogether. Because Magna Carta,
But you see, it's
It's one
related
yes.
to the tax. But I agree.
yes,
You can
we should
promote
really
both.
provide not only the domestic but also the international
Yes.
shipping
Yes.
sector incentives.
see-
Otherwise, we cannot
Yeah.
compete.
Yeah. Can you now, sir, discuss what is the impact of the bill to the mining
Yes,
sector?
the impact of the bill is originally, as I said, this is only to implement MLC.
Yes.
But
yes.
then MLC is related only to seafarers, no?
Yeah.
And since we are the #1 seafaring country in the world, the legislators had to look at even the educational system for mariners, because that's where we get the pool that we supply to the international market. No, that's why the PAMI was objecting to the fact that they were included because it is not part of MLC. No, MLC talks about cadets, but not maritime education.
Yeah.
But it was included because if we do not include all the sectors that comprises our what we call now the seafaring sector, this industry will not be able to sustain being called #1. We can
Yes.
only sustain it if we produce competent professional seafarers. And that is where the Filipinos are good. They're already seafaring, have a seafaring mind, no? Because of our thousands of islands. So that is the reason why we are not objecting to the fact that the maritime education should be part of this
Kaya lang, Eric,
of this law.
as a lawyer, almost always papasok sa akin yung training ko during our law course. Rider to eh. Rider ang provision na yan eh. The bill seeks to implement that MLC 2006, and yet wala naman sa 2006
Yes.
Well, precisely, they're not calling it just as an implementing legislation for MLC. They're now calling it the Magna Carta for seafarers so that it can encompass everything that we need to do to maintain this industry. Remember, this industry is not capital-based. government and the private sector here did not put capital just like other industries na capital intensive. And yet we can produce $6 to $7 billion of remittances. How many people are benefited by the 500,000 seafarers abroad? No? Working on board foreign vessels.
Brenda, just looking at the Magna Carta, the bill itself, it focuses on three sectors: the education, domestic, and the international. For us in the international deployment of seafarers, I fully support the passing that pertains to that sector. Why? Because if you look at the bill, if you read it, most of those rights of the seafarers are already being implemented.
Correct.
It is
That's right.
in
Exactly.
before it's
DMW.
POEA. Now it's DMW. The contract itself, the responsibility of the manning agencies is clearly defined.
Yes.
And now the issue that we have during the hearing in Congress and in Senate is on the issue on ambulance chasing.
Yeah.
We have a very interesting discussion on how we would address the ambulance chasing. So the first one that was submitted in Malacanang was returned to the BICAM, but the last version I think that would benefit the seafarers, especially on the requirement for the lawyer to submit an agreement that that they agree with the 10% lawyer's fee as per Seafarers Protection Act, and any additional agreement would be void. So we just need to educate the seafarers that if they're ambulance chasers, you can go with the flow, but at the end of the day, you have this section in the Magna Carta saying that that agreement is void, because that is what the ambulance chasings are doing. So for me, the sections in the Magna Carta pertaining to the deployment of Filipino seafarers on international vessels, I fully support that.
But may I know, Captain Ronald, when a seafarer is involved in an accident, the ambulance chaser is there. The lawyer is immediately there.
Always.
And is government there to advise the seafarer, saying that, be careful, etc., etc.? I have not heard that one.
No, it's left to the manning agency. So we are the one talking to the seafarer, advising him, because we have experienced that the seafarer is still in the hospital, and there are lawyers who are asking them to sign
of course.
a special power of attorney to represent them. So what happened then? I mean, the employers are saying, what is this? Why is my seafarer filing a case against me wherein he is still being treated in the hospital?
But
So
would
that is
not
something that the government should be looking at.
Yeah, but would not the family or the seafarer himself be more confident with a government agency talking to him than the manning agent? I mean, this is government. I should listen to him.
Well, it is a matter on, if you look at the stories of those that are victims of ambulance chaser, they are being how do you say that, encouraged to sign a special agreement because they are promised that they will get more than what they are entitled to
in the contract.
Is this not void in the
at the present system? No.
Well, if I may add, the contract that we're using for international crew is a a document that was approved tripartite.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is a product of several years of discussions, so that government could be guaranteed that the terms and conditions benefit the seamen, the seafarers.
Of course.
Okay, so as part of that objective, the contract itself provides already how much they will receive. Very much bigger than any benefit is received here locally under our
Local laws.
local employment.
Yeah.
Even
So,
on 10022.
yes,
Even what is mandated in the Migrant Workers Act, wherein the total permanent disability is only 15,000.
yes. There is even a clause, a provision of a no questions asked benefit in case of death.
For seafarers.
Yes.
Seafarers.
Yeah,
Yes.
that amounts to
Well, if you have a seafarer without any union, boarding vessels without union, it's the benefit described in the provided for by the standard employment contract, which is for death, I think it's 60,000 or 50,000, and then for total disability,
It's the same.
it's the same amount. Okay,
dollars.
but in those vessels covered by a union collective bargaining agreements, it's very much more than that. It's about double that. No,
But if you look at the Migrant Workers Act, the compensation is less than what we are providing.
yes,
What do you mean the compensation?
For death and total disability, if you read the Republic Act 10022,
Compared to what the
compared to
manning
what the
agents
manning agency is
pay.
paying,
Yeah.
it's more.
so what encourages the seamen or their families to use an ambulance chaser is because they promise them
There's a
Bigger.
the total permanent benefit provided under the contract.
Or even more.
Or even more, when in fact, if you lose a finger, that's provided for under a certain grade level, because there's a grading level for any injury that is sustained, and that grading level is part of our law, part of the labor code, part of what ECC is using for domestic conflicts.
Correct.
No, we follow that, and therefore we are prepared. The vessel and the crew are insured using what is the legal liability in case of those cases. In case of illness, there are illnesses that are work-related that is also covered. If it is contestably non-work-related, there is a provision how we will deal with such kind of illnesses. No, but right now, almost all the cases, I think 100%, I can even dare say, of cases filed against us for disability benefits is asking 100%.
Total permanent.
Total
Total
permanent.
permanent.
Yeah, but would you say it would be a lot different if at the very instance that the seafarer is is injured, government is actively involved in the discussion? Because I asked this when you said that the Magna Carta covers all that refers to the seafarer and all this in one law. But to me, when you talk of Magna Carta, it is looking back at how it started, the issue of Magna Carta. It is protection of a group against abuses of government. So in a way, make it in a positive way, it is a Magna Carta that protects actively the group that is supposed to be protected. So that is why I say
That's
should
the
be
reason
there.
why the original version that was submitted to the president, approved by Congress, only required the immediate payment, final and executory, what is due him under the contract, and what is the undisputed or uncontested benefits under the disability grading, which is not contested by the mining company nor the owners.
Paid.
It should be immediately paid.
Yes.
Eric, are you referring to the provision on Surety ba yan?
The original.
No, yes, the
section
original
59.
was,
One.
original one was, the contested amount is the only one that can be, put,
Immediately executory.
put on hold,
On
Yes.
hold.
unless the seaman would file a bond to guarantee that if the case is reversed against him, is reversed in the higher courts, he has a guarantee that we can restitute
Yeah.
what has already been paid, no? Because right now, we have over $52 million.
And that was
For
removed from
restitution.
the BICAM.
Oh,
from the,
$52 million remain unreturned and uncollected by our owners who have won the case in the Supreme Court.
Oh my God.
Although we do not know how many cases these are, but the owners now are saying that the Philippine judicial system does not have any predictability
Yes.
as far
No
as
guarantee.
Stability
what they are
predictable.
expected to pay. They're willing to pay whatever is in the contract, but not when cases are ruled beyond what the crew deserves in the contract.
So what is the status now in terms of the attractiveness of Filipino Filipino seafarers with respect to the deletion of that particular?
That's why immediately the Foreign Ship Owners Association, they immediately even sent a letter to the president
Oh yeah.
that if you delete Section 59, which was that provision that required a bond, they may have to look elsewhere to source out the seafarers that they're using. And this is not just a veiled threat. It is already happening. Because the predictability of our court decisions run counter to the collective bargaining agreement and the standard employment contract.
You mean really it's the implementation of the
Yes,
law?
We
There
have,
is a problem with the implementation.
yes, because we have argued that the contract is the law between the parties. And in our case, the contract is not just the law between labor and management. It includes government because they
The
approved
tripartite.
these terms and conditions. And yet, decisions are made against or in violation of this understanding of what the contract says. And when we asked our judicial bodies, they said that this is a discretion that is open to any arbiter or any arbitrator who will judge because there are jurisprudence or decisions made in the Supreme Court. However, we said maybe in the beginning of the industry where there were no cases like this, yes, those were cases ruled in favor of the seamen. But now, how many cases had been overturned? And why are they not using these cases that restituted the award in the present cases that they're handling? They only use selectively the cases that favored the seafarers.
So,
That's what.
So as it is now, we probably will be back to the same situation.
We will be
We-
back.
we will be back.
And all our efforts to develop this industry will be gone. Because other countries are trying to compete with us. In fact, although the data in the DMW shows an increase or an increasing number of deployment, it's not the navigating crew. It's the cruise vessels
Yes.
which are increasing because they are returning back to normal business.
Yes.
Now, but they should look at the navigating crew, the seafarers that they produce, that schools produce.
But the seafarers on the onboard cruise ships are also entitled to the same rights.
Yes, they are.
Yes. So I think
So if we have cases like that involving cruise personnel,
yes.
the same ambulance chasing problems, we are bound to lose even this sector of the market.
So you are not aware if there have been issues of this sort in the cruise shipping, because one of the what was that big vessel in the US, that
Concordia. Second
Yeah.
yan, Italy.
Yeah, so it did not happen so far, but you would not know.
That time the ambulance chasing was not as serious as it is
Ah,
now.
okay.
But now that people has been made aware about this very serious problem, that's the reason why the congressmen and the senators agreed to send the first version of the bill.
Yeah, okay. So now without that, we are having some
Back to zero.
our employers overseas are looking at possible other nationalities. And
They
that
are.
could be
They-
that is
You know, sa akin kasi, I also handled some labor cases, but domestic. The same rule applies. If the complainant gets a favorable judgment, immediately executory yun. Unless,
Yes.
immediately executory yan.
Yes.
From
Now,
really?
talagang nasa disadvantage ang foreign principals nila. Because if upon reversal, nagastos na, wala na. But I think the problem there is more on judges or the arbiters are in cahoots with those lawyers who are
Yeah.
chasing the seafarers for their services. Kasi
It's happening.
dalawang aspects ang titingnan dyan sa ambulance chasing. One is yung lawyers chasing the seafarers to avail of their services. And second, the more than 10% attorney's fees. Well, yung kasi contingent
No.
Captain really. And it's an accepted practice even in the United States. Pag contingent, it's the lawyer spending everything during dependency of the case. They get more than iba nga 60-40 pa. But ang problema talaga sa ambulance chasing is that those lawyers are in cahoots. Kaya nagkakaroon ng awards.
they're in cahoots.
Now are the more than what is prescribed under the contract or as prescribed by law. Yun ang problema
And
nila.
the one prejudice is the seaman.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
he expected that he will get more.
Yes.
But if he gets only 40%
Yeah.
or 50% of the total award, he could have gotten that directly from without a
And
case being.
And since executory, talagang ako rin even during the deliberation ng kwan, yung surety is a good middle ground na assured naman ang kwan eh. If the Supreme Court sustain the decision, mayroon pa rin sila makukuha because may surety bond eh, na pinost ang principle.
Well, I think what is written now in section 59 of the BICAM
Latest.
version,
The latest.
if I may read, it says that legal representative of seafarer shall submit an entry of appearance with attached notarized certification and affidavit of undertaking with the following averments. Number 1, they shall not charge the seafarer for a fee contingent of more than 10% of the compensation which may be awarded to the seafarer. And they shall not lend or borrow money from the seafarers or participate in usurious lending practices and shall not recommend, endorse, or facilitate loans with lending individuals or companies connected to seafarers directly or indirectly.
That's the latest. But are these
Any-
not found?
Just me
Okay.
continue. Any excess from the 10% received or collected by the legal representative of the seafarer shall be held in trust in favor of the seafarer. So we need to
Okay.
educate our seafarers so that they will not be victims.
Correct.
Because in the event that the decision is reversed by the Supreme Court, at least the
You're right.
employer
Yeah.
can run
Wow.
after the seafarer because they have the money.
Yeah.
Unlike now, that 40 or 50% of the award goes to the lawyer.
But these are not found or existing now? Not.
No.
No. Can I
Yeah.
can I
Yeah,
interrupt?
sir.
I know this will be well, an issue also for education. Ambulance chasers are, as they said, no, they 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 are the architects of decay for our industry. And I can relate to I can relate to them because I have graduates myself and even faculties who are victims of
Ambulance
ambulance chasing. And what they were saying right now only makes me realize that one of the problems of our industry right now is maritime education, particularly the curriculum. If we were able to educate our students as early as they entered
On their rights.
on their rights
Yes.
and
On their
welfare,
rights, yes.
I don't think this will be an issue.
Once the Magna Carta is passed, you should include that in your curriculum
We
so that they know their rights.
Yes.
actually this is that part of this exercise and part of these activities that we try to collect insights from the industry.
Yes.
We are required by 𝐻ED to submit a research on the curriculum innovations that can be included in the next round of the design of the curriculum. That's why I'm really happy that we have insights, we have a discussion like this so that we can input it in our next proposal for a curriculum innovation.
I think it's very important because there are 4 pillars of maritime now.
Yeah.
The STCW, the SOLAS,
Marple.
MARPOL, and
MLC.
MLP.
Yes.
So I would recommend that PAMI should consider including the MLC in the
Yes.
curriculum so that we can equip our seafarers their rights.
Actually, it is right now. Actually, it is right now. I think it needs more emphasis to avoid situations like this that the victims opt to go for a higher payoff compared to what is already provided. And I think they do that because, like what you said, they are promised greener and bigger pays, only to find out that they will only be getting a meager amount because the lawyer and the cahoots or the whatever they are cooperating with will get also a substantial amount from what is to be awarded. So I really think that
That's good. That's one thing.
yeah.
But because Mrs. Romero, I forgot to mention, is the Secretary of the Women in Maritime Philippines. And I think one of the issues we must feel, no?
Yeah.
And one of the issues, of course, is also that could be, I don't know, is there any direction on we must be pushing for inclusion in the curriculum related to, women or female students in the maritime schools? Is it something, Arlene, that you are now considering?
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, because one of the banner programs of the 𝐸MA is the She to See, which is to encourage more female in the maritime industry, not only as seafarer, because you were mentioning also there are a lot of other careers.
Yeah.
On another, my other affiliation is the Movement for Maritime Philippines, and we would like people to be more aware that the maritime industry can provide a lot of alternatives. So it's not
Yes.
only seafaring. There are a lot of areas where you can have new programs being developed and created and pursued, like maritime administration. Like Brenda was mentioning, I entered Marina fresh from college without knowing anything about the maritime. As they say, I got marinated in the next 30 years that I stayed with Marina. So everything I knew, I learned on the job. There was no preparation, there was no training program or course that I attended for me to be better prepared to be an employee of the Maritime Administration. I think the same goes for Port Administration and other branches of the maritime industry. So that is what we would like to pursue. And the women in the seafaring industry or other areas of the maritime is one of the banner programs of the 𝐸MA field, that we would like to open more information campaign. Like when you go to this orientation, career pathing, that you introduce that there are a lot of opportunities for women to join and be prepared to educate in the maritime industry.
Yeah.
But
Well, I can say that now a lot of ship owners uh, are giving opportunities to female cadets, female ratings, female officers because of the UN SDG goal of
Yes.
gender equality.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
So actually, when we talk to schools wherein we ask for female cadets, most of them are already taken.
Yes.
So we would like to encourage female
Yes.
students who want to venture into maritime to look at a career in maritime.
Uh-huh. So
That's true.
again, I think one of the things that really pricked my mind is what Sir Eric was saying. You know, all this citation of and Attorney Pete on judges and those
Cahoots.
implementers. But again, I
What is
go
government?
back to that position that the Magna Carta should carry a lot more provisions on the obligation of government to implement this bill, or when it becomes a law. We have heard about, and I've always been pushing for the issue of compliance monitoring and enforcement. You do not just monitor compliance of ship owners, of manning agencies, but you have to monitor compliance of government implementers. This is something that is missing in the Magna Carta. So that you will have this issue of now who monitors
Yeah.
the arbiters, the implementing of this by judges, etc. So that is just a point I wanted to highlight again.
Actually, it is, I think this is also part of the intention of the Magna Carta, but it's not specifically mentioned.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's put it this way. Many are saying, especially from the industry and the legislators, that the Magna Carta is a part of the solution to address EU or EMSA. Well, to me, though I do not agree with that, maybe it may be one of many solutions, but it's not the solution. EMSA, just like any other party to the STCW, is a party-to-party audit. It is not an audit to a school. It is not audit to a training center. They are auditing the government on how they comply with the international provisions or the code. Here in the Philippines, it has been mistaken that EMSA is an audit to the schools. It is not. I just have to make that clear. It's an audit of EU, of another government to another government. And the findings to that is relative or directed to the government, not the school, not the training center. They only use the schools and the training center to validate their findings.
So it's more of a failure of government, if ever.
To monitor.
Yeah.
To monitor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I think we can take a break, 5 minutes. We can go back on the issue that is very important to the PAMI president. So can we take a break, 5 minutes?
Okay.
5 minutes.